welcome to another episode of Aligned Heart. This is Misty Springer, and I'm so pleased to be with you today. I just returned from a conference that I was speaking at, and one of the messages that I took away from the conference was in preparation for my own talk. And as I was contemplating what I wanted to share about tuning into your divine nature to do your important work and the lessons that Esther teaches us about how to do that. One of the things that kept coming back to me was this, the benefit, the blessing, the privilege of being in communion with God, to be in stillness, to be in that sacred pause. That when we are in that space of stillness, we can turn the volume up on the truth of who we are, our divine nature, how God sees us, and that is the true motivator in becoming who we're designed to be. And one of the things that I know is that the space where I hear most clearly the truth of who I am and what I have heard from countless women that I have spoken to, that in one way or another, one form or another, there is this knowing that I need time in stillness. I need space to be still with God. And so I wanted to do a follow-up to the talk that I gave in this conference and just speak to this idea of be still and know. And what I know to be true is in that stillness, we awaken joy, we remember our potential, and we align with God. And that's what I want to introduce here in a little bit of a different way, in a form of contemplative prayer, a form of praying without words, this communion with God. And I want to kind of walk through what that looks like and why that is important and how that's been a part of the Christian tradition for centuries. So when we think about becoming who we're designed to be, it can sometimes feel like I have to do more. It can feel like I often show a balloon, and that when we try to blow up a balloon or expand a balloon, if we try to expand the balloon from the outside in, it doesn't work, right? We can pull on all the edges of the balloon, expanding it from the outside, and what happens? It just snaps back into place. And we often try to do this in our own lives. Like, if I just had more time, then I would get the things done that I need to do. If I just had more discipline, then I wouldn't procrastinate. If I just lost 10 pounds, then I would feel confident. If I just boss my brain and think more positively, then I'll be enough. It feels like there is this never-ending task list of if I just. And that's the filling up from the outside in. And it never lasts. It's temporary. And we snap right back to our old habits, our old behaviors, our old patterns. And it can feel very, very frustrating, because the changes that we want to make, the transformation that we want, is not possible through expanding from the outside in. What we have to do is expand from the inside out. It is the be, do, have model. Who I am being is the first step, not what I'm doing. So who I am being, when I have more confidence, then I lose the 10 pounds. When I have that feeling of I am enough, when I fill up on sufficiency, then I show up and think more positively and Don't procrastinate. When I feel like I am full, when I fill up from the inside out, when I blow up my balloon and I fill my balloon, it expands. And guess what? That expansion sticks, it stays. So, where do we find our enoughness? There was a quote that I love. It says, um, what is one, there was a person who asked, what is the greatest need in the world? And one wisely responded, is not the greatest need in all of the world for every person to have a personal, ongoing, daily, continuing relationship with the divine. Having such a relationship can unchain the divinity within us. And nothing can make a greater difference in our lives as we come to know and understand our divine relationship with God. That was James Faust. When we fill up from the inside out, we are changed. Our hearts are changed. When we spend time with God, when we spend time in the stillness, being tutored on the truth of who we are, when we spend time turning up the volume on what I call the first voice, that is who we become, and we move into action from that place. We are a whole being. We're a mind, a body, and a heart. And 80% of our capacity to change resides in our body and heart. Only 20% is in our mind. And you can think about this in how many times have you gone to a class or listened to a podcast and you've gotten all the great information, you've written everything down, and you come back home and you're motivated and you're like, yes, let's do this. And the change lasts for 2 hours. Maybe you don't even make it home. Maybe it lasts for 2 weeks and then you're right back where you started. That's because we're only accessing 20% of our transformative power if we are only trying to make a change from our mind. In order for total transformation to work, we have to engage our body and heart at the same time. That is why with every episode that I record, I also record an experience that you can have to bring your body and heart into the learning. Because when you bring your body and heart into the learning process, when you take the information that you've gained in your mind and then combined it with the experience of your body and heart, that's where lasting transformation occurs. So, how do we do this? How do we create this stillness, this turning up the volume on the first voice, and then turning down the volume on the second voice, which is all the noise in our head? Oftentimes, I find one of the reasons that we can't make more lasting change just from our mind is that we have a lot of noise up there. There's a lot of clutter. There's a lot of discord, and there's a lot of limiting beliefs and patterns that we've learned through generations of how to do things that may not be in service to us. We may have doubts and fears and insecurities that are swirling around. That's all the second voice in our mind. And so we have to drop into our body and heart to turn up the volume on our first voice, fill up from the inside out, and get into action from a place of being who we want to be, being the woman we are designed by God to be. So one of the ways that we can do this is through stillness. And I wanted to base the next three steps on a scripture in Psalms. It's Psalm 62:8. Trust in him at all times, ye people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Selah. So the first step is this concept I talk about of divine vulnerability. Now we know that vulnerability creates connection. And yet, how often are we truly vulnerable with God? How often do we pour out our heart? Right? The very first line, trust in him at all times and pour out your heart. When we pour out our heart, when we empty the vessel, the container of our heart, when we just let it all go, pour out our heart, our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, when we pour it out before God, we offer an opportunity to create connection. In our vulnerability, we create connection with God. And then we get to stop and listen. We get to create a sacred pause. So at the end of that scripture, God is a refuge for us, Selah. Selah is a sacred pause. It was a pause. The Psalms are all musical. They were put to music, and Selah literally means a pause in the music. It was a time to pause for emphasis, to contemplate, to let the words and the music sink in and touch your heart. So that Selah is a sacred pause. So it's saying, trust in God, pour out your heart, and then be still. Rest in the sacred pause. So the sacred pause is contemplative prayer or a prayer of the heart. So one of the things that scripture also teaches us is that your body is a temple. And a temple is a place where we can receive further light and knowledge. We need to learn to listen differently, not listen harder, listen differently. Camille Johnson says we need to experience Jesus. To be different, we have to pray different. Contemplative prayer is a form of Christian meditation that's been around for centuries, and it is a way to pray differently. It's praying without words, praying in communion, in rest with the divine, allowing yourself to just be instead of in the doing of prayer. So it's helpful to understand what contemplative means. So as you think about contemplative prayer, it means with temple. Con is with, templative means template or temple. A temple is a place where the Lord comes, and it's the most holy place of worship anywhere on earth. And contemplative is a space set aside to be with God and discern his will. So if you think about in the scriptures that our body is a temple, we're told in scripture in 1 Corinthians 3:16, know ye not that you are a temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you. Our body is a temple. It's a place where we can commune with God, where we can open up our heart to be with God. And so as we think about a prayer of the heart, Christian contemplative prayer is also called a prayer of the heart. If our body is the temple, then our heart is the Holy of Holies. In Solomon's temple back in Old Testament times, the Holy of Holies was the place where the prophet went to discern the will of God, to be with God. It was the most holy of all the spaces within the temple. And so as we think about communing with God, as we think about being with God, we can be in our body and in the Holy of Holies, which is our heart. So when you're not feeling enough, when you're not feeling like you have what it takes, drop into the place where the truth of who you are lies. Go to the place where you can commune with God in the stillness to discern how he sees you, discern the truth of how you are showing up as who he sees you as. So this divine vulnerability, trust in the Lord, pour out your heart, find refuge with God, and then Selah, be still. Be in the sacred pause. Be in the space of contemplative prayer. Be in the space of truly feeling and filling up and turning up the volume on that first voice. We're going to move into a form of contemplative prayer in the podcast that accompanies this podcast. And I'm going to teach you a prayer of the heart or breath prayer that is a way that you can commune with God and be in your heart in this space of stillness. Thank you all for being here. If this is something that you found helpful, please share. Let me know what hit you, what stands out to you. I listen to every response. I respond to every email. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here. And we'll talk soon.